Good evening, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, adepts, friends, fans, family, and followers to Season 5, Episode 7 of the hit underground occult radio show known as Knights of the Nephilim, brought to you by Celestial Oddities Radio and the Coterie of Semil Arcane Occult Order. As always, I will be your host and guide on this journey into magic and mysticism, darkness, and divination. I am Frater Crow, and it's a pleasure to have you listening in this evening. Whether you're listening live, streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded this to your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Make sure you click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons on whatever platform you're tuning in from. Helps us move up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to all of our shows, whether it be this show, Knights of the Nephilim, based upon esoteric and occult science, theology, ritual magic, and so forth, or be one of our other shows like Pong, Pair of Normal Guys podcast, deep diving into paranormal and supernatural phenomena, Caniculum Obscuritatis, showing you how to build a practice from the ground up, Last Caw, unrelented, unfiltered stories, or Uncovering the Underground, interviewing and talking with artists of all different kinds from all over the world. We bring you a ton of great underground entertainment, so feel free to watch what you like and share it around. If you are more of a visual and live person, every week as we are airing live, you can check us out across 4 different Facebook pages: Frater Crow, Knights of the Nephilim, the Coterie of Semil, and Celestial Oddities Radio. They will be housed there for 30 days until Facebook removes them due to their policies, but they also will be on Knights of the Nephilim YouTube page permanently, and you can watch it there live as well as after the fact. If you are more of an audio person, I know we have a lot of fans out there that like listening on their drive, on their or at their time at the gym, while they're at work, and so forth. As soon as these episodes do end, I upload them to Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, Castbox, Google, Amazon, Apple, iHeartRadio, and many, many more. So we're pretty much everywhere you could hope to find us, so feel free to listen where you want. But if you are listening live and you drop us comments during the show, we will throw them up on the screen. We'll read them off. We'll read your questions to our guest. We love you being interactive with the show because the show is as much yours as it is ours. So please feel free to interact. If you've missed the past 6 episodes, you've missed a lot of great guests, a lot of great conversation, and definitely think it would be worth going back and checking out any and all of the episodes that you may have missed. We had John Vermillion and Orly Stewart for episode 1. Episode 2, we had Baba Yogi Kalanath Agori. Episode 3, we had Baal Kadmon. 4, we had Natasha Michelle of the Coterie of Semil. 5, we had Frater Vamiri Eduardo Regis from Brazil, talking about different ATR religions. And on Sunday, we did a special episode with our guest from the Netherlands, Wilmar Tal, talking about gnome magic. He is the leading expert in the world right now on gnome magic. And it was a very fascinating and very different conversation. So make sure you go check those out. Tonight on Knights of the Nephilim, we welcome a true titan of Western mysteries, Bill Duvendack, who over 35 years of experience as a practitioner, author, teacher, and internationally recognized astrologer. Bill has become a guiding voice for seekers around the globe. His work spans astrology, ceremonial magic, tarot, mediumship, esotericism, and beyond. He has published well over 20 books, co-created with leading occult minds such as Asenath Mason, and has presented at conferences, festivals, and media outlets worldwide. From his deep study of Thelemic, Golden Dawn, and Draconian currents to his exploration of the Qliphothic, past lives, and spirit relations, Bill brings a lifetime of wisdom and an unparalleled depth of knowledge. Prepare for a conversation that'll stretch the mind and ignite your spirit, because tonight we open the gates of hidden wisdom with Bill Duvendack. So ladies and gentlemen, step into the circle as we call forward Bill Duvendack. Good evening, brother.
Good evening, brother. How you doing? I love that intro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It is well deserved and much high praise to you, sir.
Well, thank you. I love your presentation. Let's have some fun, shall we?
Let's absolutely have some fun. We already got some people tuning in. We have good evening, Crow. Good evening, Tara. We have Richard saying good evening to the two of us. Good evening, Richard. Hello from Brittany. And hello from Lisa, saying good evening from Los Angeles. Well, thank you so much for tuning in.
Fantastic. And I want to give Tara a shout out because her name is an esoteric key that I have not had a chance to explore yet, but I think she might since it's in her name. And that is the fact that in the Tibetan tradition, in the Hindu tradition, in the Buddhist tradition, there are 22 forms of Tara. So what that means is there is a different Tara that corresponds to each one of the major tarot trumps.
That is very interesting. I did not know that. See, guys, we're starting off strong.
I figured I'd start off with a punch right in the face, and we'll take it from there.
I love it.
Well, so there you go, Tara. Have fun exploring your name. There's 22 variations on it, and we look forward to hearing what you got to say.
Absolutely. So, and Tara, if you have any questions for our guest this evening, please feel free to drop them. We would love to dive into anything you guys want to know tonight. But we're going to start off and say that, Bill, you've spent over 35 years in the Western Mysteries. What first pulled you onto the path? And not only pulled you onto the path, but what has kept you devoted over all these years?
So, it's funny because I get asked that question a lot. And it's the classic question that you've had and that others have had towards you, which is what got you in this to begin with? And frankly, and this is what makes a lot of people laugh, it was just boredom and curiosity. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So once I expanded everything I could learn with regards to the natural sciences, I said, well, what about the things that are not taught in school? What about ghosts? What about aliens? What about the occult? And so I started exploring that direction, found Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which of course is a spiritualist, and that led me to the Necronomicon and the Satanic Bible, and the rest from there is history. Now, what keeps me going is that same curiosity, but also stubbornness. I'm of the age where Star Trek The Next Generation was on primetime TV. And Patrick Stewart, of course, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, had this phrase that I still use all the time. Let's see what's out there. I want to explore. What is out there that I have not explored? What is out there that I do not know? So that's what keeps me going, is straight curiosity.
And you know what? I'm very much on the same wavelength as you. Is I've always considered myself an esoteric explorer. I want to know what is out there. How do we interact with it? How do we interact with it at deeper and more potent levels? And what am I able to learn through those interactions, which leads me to new corridors and realms that I haven't explored before? And a lot of people, you would think that would be their main motive, but to a lot of people, that's not. It's let's work with a spirit. Let's see what we can gain from that spirit. Almost like a working partnership, which there's nothing wrong with, but I look at it as an explorer. I want to see where are those keys to unlock those other hidden doors.
Exactly. I completely agree. And part of that is the fact that you and I are approaching it from a perspective that is not common. Most people that are drawn to the occult are drawn to it. I agree. It's good to have that stubbornness. Most people are drawn to the occult because they're seeking, shall we say, revenge or personal empowerment because other areas of their life are not that way, or perhaps they're seeking spiritual bypassing or spiritual escapism. And that's all well and good if that works for them. But there is the section of us, like you and I, that just want to know more. And that's one of the reasons I'm a Thelemite. There's a phrase out of the Book of the Law that says, strive evermore, exceed, push your boundaries, be curious, see what's out there. That is really the best way to achieve success.
100% agree. Is you have to strive. You have to have that hunger. And for me, and for most of us, I think that it becomes an unquenchable thirst. You know, the more I've learned, the more I know I don't know, and the more I want more. And it's like, a lot of people are like, man, you have such a knowledge base. And I'm like, really? Because I'm still looking at it like a starry-eyed kid saying, you know, I want to know it all. And I feel like I don't know anything yet. And I think that's what keeps us, keeps us hungry, keeps us moving forward.
Exactly. And I completely agree. As much as I learn, that's the same amount that I recognize I don't know. And that can be intimidating to people, whether you realize it or not, because if you come off as confident with what you know, then people assume you're confident all the way around, when in reality, you're just saying, I know this section, but I recognize there's this much more out there, and I ain't got a clue.
100%. I love that. Now, as someone who's very, very well known in astrology, I should say as an esoteric astrologer, how does your work with the stars differ from what most people might understand as mainstream astrology?
So it's complex, but I'll break it down nice and simple. In a lot of ways, it's the same as Western astrology. However, the difference is in the interpretation. Whether it's a Thelemic interpretation of things or whether it's an esoteric interpretation of things. Good evening to you too, Emily. That's where the issues come in. Because with a standard interpretation of astrology, you get the ideas that you know and I know, which is simply that the stars move, they do these things, and we can either be a victim of it or a victor of it. But esoteric astrology says this is symbolic for a deeper spiritual journey. And Thelemic astrology says, well, these are all tools. And the reason I break them down is because the difference that I bring to the table is in recognizing the fact that it can be both. When you work with astrology, it can help you chart your life's path, but it can also open a door to spiritual growth.
I 100% agree. I would fully agree with that. And I like that there is layers to it. I mean, and that's the thing is we like to a lot of times look at things as one level. You know, people want to say like, what is its meaning? And I'm like, well, what layer do you want to look at it from? Because there is a multi-layer structure here. I mean, with anything, whether you're talking about astrology, whether you're talking about even reading, we talk about a lot on the show with different guests and some of my other shows about the layers of theology and biblical understanding. When you look at things and you can dive to 6-7 layers deep, it keeps going, and it's like an onion. You truly have to peel to get to the center. I mean, it's like the Qliphothic as well, in which we will talk about this evening. There's the basic understanding, but how deep do you want to go, dear listener, as far as what level we reach?
Right, exactly. And if you extrapolate that out, then what that means is a very business-oriented truth, which is you give the person what they ask for, not necessarily what you know.
Yeah.
And I'm very careful with that. If somebody asks me, do my astrological chart, sure, no problem. Here are your strengths and here are your weaknesses. But if they start asking about spiritual path, if they start asking about spiritual traditions to explore, I remind them right off the bat, that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, because they can get very complex with that.
Exactly. So the spiritual seeker says, how can I use my birth chart to improve my spirit? I throw the question back on them and say, well, what direction is your spirit headed? And I can't answer that.
Yeah, only they can. And I mean, that's going to very heavily change the narrative that you're able to give them on that specific subject. It's like tarot. I mean, when you're giving a tarot reading for someone, you can give someone a very basic but yet thorough reading. And then there's all kinds of side quests you can go on. Do you want to know Kabbalistically what your tarot reading is saying? I mean, because if we're going down that avenue, it's a whole different ball game in reading than if I'm just giving you a baseline tarot reading. And it seems like a lot of people are only asking for the baseline. I'm like, but if you want to dive deep, we can dive deep as you want to go.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, as much as we're talking about these truisms, we see them reflected in society and politics at large. Whenever you're revealing information, whether it's tarot or astrology, you talk to people on the level of their reception. So you have to be careful not to volunteer things. You have to be careful to answer accurate questions, but you still couch them in a phrase that is receptive. For example, if I hear something coming out of the White House, I really don't give a shit what it's got to say. I'm going to interpret it from my experience of my knowledge base. And the same is true for someone who gets a tarot reading. They're going to hear what you've got to say, but they're still going to be interpreting it from their level of consciousness. So it's our jobs as spiritual seekers to break things down to a level that is most impactful.
And I explained that exact thing. And I love how you explained that, is that, look at books. So obviously you have quite a bit behind you. Someone can read a book and it changed their life, and someone else read the book and try to explain something to them like, no, you don't understand, there's this level here, and the person's like, I get it, and you're like, no, you don't get it. Like, and it's that you can only explain it from your point of view, and it's going to hit you differently than anybody else, and you're going to take things away from that they can't. So how you just explained that is perfect. You can only give them what they're ready for. And you don't want to lead them. Like you said, that's a big thing. It's almost like leading the witness. You don't want to plant things there that are not there, because it's going to change their narrative that maybe they're not ready for.
I was a spiritualist minister for 9 years, and one of the things we learned in seminary was the fact that there is such a thing as cold readings. And many of the listeners, I'm sure, can relate to this. You go to someone for a tarot reading or astrology reading, and they give you hello, Joni. They give you information based on a generic platform. So they say, you'll meet the right person at the right time. That's known as a cold reading in spiritualism circles. And basically the essence of it is, it's so generic, it fits everyone.
Yeah.
So then people like you and I and others, the onus is on us to relay it in particular details so they don't feel like they're getting a generic answer. And I point this out because this is something that can be used as a red flag to people when they're getting a reading. If the person that's doing the reading is saying generic things, they probably don't know what they're talking about. You want someone that gives it specifics. During this time frame, there's a chance that this will occur, or when this opportunity comes up, you can go this way or you can go that way. And that's what separates spiritual seekers like yourself and I from other people who are using it as a scam to make a buck.
Well, and that happens so often that a lot of people seeking are just doing that. They're seeking, so they go to a reader and the reader says, I sense upheaval in your life. And the person's like, well, I just was fired from my job 2 weeks ago. You're like, and I can see it in the cards. And you're like, my God, this person's amazing. And it's like, that was the most general statement that they could ever get you. You want to believe so much that you're going to link it to whatever you can as the person being read to that reading. Oh, I can sense that there's a romance soon to bloom. Well, I have been talking to someone. I think he's the one. And it's like, you want to hear that. You know what I mean? So you're going to buy into that. It's different to say, you know what, I see you talking to someone and he may be the one, but there's something that he's not quite telling you. And there's some hidden baggage there. And you start to dive into that. And then they end up finding out 2 weeks later, oh my God, there is things that he's not telling me. And you were able to see heavily into A and B. Well, yes, because it's a real reading. Anybody can say, oh, there's bad things that have happened to you and there's good things that are going to come. Well, sure, we all go through, bad and good waves. So, folks, if you're listening out there and you're getting readings from someone who's never actually, they're saying a lot, but never actually saying anything, you need to probably switch it up a little bit and look for new readers. Tara asked a question here and says, how does one either read their own chart or have theirs read by an expert to make their strengths grow? And my answer to that before Bill answers would be go to someone like Bill.
Well, thank you for that. And Tara, so I'm going to do you a solid, and it's probably going to piss off some astrologers, so just throw me under the bus. I'm fine with that. It's my career. Basically, the first thing to do is look at the North Node in your chart, and it's the little loop with the arch and the loop on the other end. The reason that I direct you this way is because that is your North Star spiritual compass. So anything you need to know about where you're going spiritually is all encapsulated in that one point. The reason that this might irk other astrologers is the fact that you're not going to them to find out your soul's purpose. I just gave you not only your soul's purpose, but the sole purpose of everybody that's listening. And the reason this is important is because you can obsess over this one point, you can dive deep on it, you can extrapolate it, however you want to interpret it. That is your guide. And the reason this matters is because, as much as that sounds awe-inspiring, in reality, that's just one piece of your chart.
Yep.
So take the fish on the hook, zadi it up, and enjoy it. But just know that when you understand that, it opens the door to a bigger conversation.
It opens the door to quite a bigger conversation. Because, like you said, it's one aspect of such a greater scheme there. As you look, there's so many different powerful points that you can observe and dive deeper into, but that is a very, very potent one, Tara. So please follow through with that. Make sure you spend some time. Obviously, it doesn't have to be tonight. We want you to watch the show. But tomorrow, it's a Friday. Spend your Friday evening.
It's a Friday, right.
Now let's take a look here. We have another comment came through, and it just has an alien head. I love it.
Well, we are aliens.
Yes,
I mean, let's face facts. You're welcome, Tara. So let's break it down. So first of all, if you're in the United States and you're white, you're an alien. If you are a human on Earth, as the title of the show suggests, you're probably an alien because of the Nephilim connection and all of the stories there. And even if everything that I said is bullshit, you're still an alien because you don't subscribe to the norm. You subscribe to channels like this, you subscribe to people like us, and that puts you on the outside of society.
It certainly does. And if you guys, and I was looking it up real quick as Bill was talking, there's a fascinating book I would suggest all of you reading. And for some reason, it was slipping my mind, so I had to hurry and try to find it. Fingerprint of the Gods by Graham Hancock. And it's very
fantastic book.
Fantastic book. And it talks about the fact that we're aliens, because it talks about these ancient cultures that talked about these white men, these creatures came on these spaceships, and we've never seen white skin, and they landed, and that pretty much all these different cultures, how it connects. And then it starts to compare all these different areas of the world and how they all were saying the same thing in petroglyphs. And it's just fascinating, the structures that are still existent to this day that we can't explain, that there was no way they would have had the understanding thousands of years ago to create some of these temples and pyramids. And it's just something I've always found to be absolutely fascinating.
Oh, it's a fantastic book by a fantastic author. And hand in hand with that is his book, Supernatural, which is the title, which is why I put it in air quotes. And the essence of that book is, if you look back at mythology and history, you get stories of elves, you get stories of dwarves, of gnomes, and all that. And the preface that he puts forth in the book is, what if that is just that culture's understandings of aliens?
Yep. And I've thought that myself before, is that, you know what, a lot of people are saying different things, but they're all kind of saying the same thing. So it's just their understanding and how they express it. And that's a lot of times with different interactions with gods, is there's a lot of connections that are very, very similar amongst the gods of ancient times, that they were experiencing something, but they each put their own dressing to it, their own wardrobe to it. And that's why we see such a synchronicity amongst a lot of different pantheons of gods.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why in my book, Ubiquitous Consciousness, I gave creation stories from around the world. And I don't mean the around the world of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, where we're talking about Greece and Rome and Celtic and Egyptian. I mean the fact that I included Native American, Hindu, Chinese, India. And the reason that I was all encompassing was to show those exact parallels. If we look at the origin stories of the globe, we see more parallels than differences. And that should be a clue to point us in the right direction of what we need to learn as a species.
Yep, and a big thing that we see a lot of synchronicity amongst as well is not only the stories of the gods and how they link up. One that every culture seems to have shared is the deluge flood. Everyone from ancient times all talked about this cataclysmic event that wiped clean the world, and I think it was Fingerprint of the Gods as well that talks about that, and it talks about over and over and over again. What's very interesting, folks, is not only do they talk about there being a flood, they all talk about a few people in each culture surviving. There was one that stuck with me. The 2 or 3 members of a family climbed inside the hollow of a tree trunk, and it washed their entire village and population away, but they survived by floating on top of the water in a tree trunk. And that's very reminiscent of Noah. It's very reminiscent of the stories in Mesopotamian lore about the family who survived on an ark, the same as Noah, though it predates Noah. So we see these connections time and time again, cultures understanding the same things, but in their own tongue.
And see, I'm cynical. So for those of you that are just getting introduced to me to the first time, I'll give you a couple of warnings. First of all, I'm cynical. Secondly, I have a dry sense of humor to the point where an ex-girlfriend of mine that was British said I was drier than Brits. So I want to give you that heads up. But when we're talking about things like this, the cynic in me says, well, then just go back to the end of the last ice age.
Yeah.
Because the ice age encapsulated down to south of the Mediterranean, not by much, but a little bit, but it did not reach sub-Saharan Africa. So when we hear these origin stories, we are inclined to do what Frater Crow says, which is interpret them as they are into this idea of a flood, but we have to create mental context for what that means. And usually for what that means is whatever culture, and it's going to be above that line of latitude, there was a supermassive flood. Because if you look at the creation stories of people below that latitude, that creation story is not there. Now, to split hairs, and this is intentional, 80% of the planet's surface lives above the equator line. So when you have all these stories that he was sharing, what that means is 80% of the planet was affected at that time, and we can find enough parallels to know that there is an essence of fact in those stories.
Truly, there's, and that's the biggest thing, is whether there was a spin added to it by different cultures because it became their lore and it was passed down generation to generation and it was altered as all things do, like the old kids game telephone. That does happen, but in each and every one of them, there's that seed corn of truth that is shared amongst everyone, and I find that to be beautiful. That at least we have those, because so much of the narrative has been washed clean that we don't know. I believe that the civilization of Earth has been around for much, much, much longer than we are told, and we only can go off of what we know. And even though we have records that date back pretty far, that's still only a flash in the pan of where it really goes to. But at least we have those. I mean, we talk about the Mesopotamian tablets and how it's one of the oldest things that we have record of as far as writings. Well, yes, we do, but I would believe that that is not the original civilization. There was, civilizations prior to that we just unfortunately don't have any record of.
Exactly. And you can find evidence of this in Göbekli Tepe. You can find evidence of this in northwestern India. You can find evidence of this in various places across the globe. And what really is the essence here is the fact that most human history, for lack of a better word, is oral tradition. There's a meme that you have seen all over social media. It was more popular many years ago than it is now. But it's the idea that humans have been around for approximately 200,000 years, but we only have history, written history, going back about 2,000 years. So, what that means is more human history has been lost than has been remembered.
Yep, 100%. And that's the
So
thing,
then
is we
we're
can only
left with
compare it.
oral tradition. Yeah.
Yeah, we're only able to go off of what we've had passed down to us either through oral tradition or the small fragments that we have written down or carved into stone. And that's great that we still have that. And I think that, for example, one of the things I think is just an amazing find is obviously Nag Hammadi and the caves of Qumran. If it wasn't for those two findings, it would have changed so much of what all of us believe and are practicing right now, because we only understood Gnosticism from the lens of Christianity, and it was often in a negative light. And when those two different findings happened, we were able to see the depths of the books of Enoch. We were able to see the Gospel of Thomas, and so many other fragments of things that were like, oh, wow, we have a whole different perspective on these early Gnostic Christians and what their belief system was, that if it wouldn't have been for whoever hid these away, that would have been erased from history, and it would have just been something that no one ever actually knew what the Gnostics believed, or at least subsections of the Gnostics, because there were so many different Gnostic sects out there. So, but I think that, there's still going to be in history us finding hidden gems from time to time. It's going to be lesser and lesser as time goes on. Obviously, things disintegrate, but I don't think we found our last big cachet of hidden gems just yet, and I can't wait for the next one.
Exactly. And if you extrapolate this line of thinking out, it tells us how much wisdom was lost with the burning of the Library of Alexandria.
Yeah, I bitch about that all the time. I'm like, God, I wish I could go back in time and see what was housed there. Truly, the amount of scrolls and knowledge that was housed there before it was burnt.
I'm not gonna take this show as an opportunity to rant, because I could easily do that right there with you. And I agree with Ryan. So many of our records have been lost or destroyed. I wonder why. Well, really, there's two reasons, and I am that guy. Reason number one are things like the burning of the Library of Alexandria. And then the second reason, which is the more nefarious one, which is the oppression of wisdom that does not align with the doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church.
Yep.
There's really two reasons. And the reason I point this out is because oftentimes today, people try and find one reason, but they fail to take into account that there are multiple reasons this information does not exist. It's not just one reason.
Yeah, there's a slew of different reasons. You have religious oppression of different organizations wanting to oppress it. You have political agendas behind it, because oftentimes people always say keep religion and politics out of conversations. Well, we act like they're two separate conversations or two separate categories, but really they go hand in hand. You're never going to find religion without politics close by, and vice versa. They always seem to be pretty close to one another, and they have their own individual agendas as well as shared agendas, and a lot of that has to be blamed or be accredited, I guess, for what has happened in history, for things like the temple, or for the Library of Alexandria, excuse me. And then there was a lot of, if you look at the temples and some of the hieroglyphics of ancient Egypt times, that were defaced. A lot of the walls were scraped or smashed so that you couldn't render or bring down what was written on the wall. So we don't know the full stories of some of these tombs that we found, because they've been defaced for some reason or another to hide certain information. And when you look at old Egyptian books that log kings and things, they were doing it to themselves. Kings that didn't like other pharaohs were removing the pharaohs from the record books, and you see these gaps in time where you're like, well, where did they go? Well, we didn't like that pharaoh, so we just erased them from history. It's really interesting that we can't always blame it on the opponent or enemy. Sometimes it comes from within our own house.
Exactly. And a real good example of that is the story of astrology. Up until the discovery and development of the natural sciences during the Renaissance, astrology was taught in universities such as Oxford. Now, the reason that astrology was dropped from the curriculum was twofold. Number one, the rise in natural sciences. It makes sense, it's budget cuts. And number two, the fact that there was an individual who believed that astrology went against their religious belief. So you have this perfect storm of a university saying, well, we need to make budget cuts. And then you have this influential religious person saying, well, that's good because it doesn't align with what we are programming people to believe anyway.
Yep. 100%.
If it wasn't for the religious component, there's a decent chance astrology would still be taught today in an academic, universal setting. But it was because of someone, just like you pointed out, that had an issue. It's now relegated to a pseudoscience, which it is not.
It's not, and that's so funny to see the arguments of that. You'll see people bitch so much about, oh, astrology and astronomy, it's nonsense. Who believes in any of that? And as you said, it's a pseudoscience, and none of these people can prove any of this is real. And it's like, I don't know what kind of proof you need, because it's so dead on all the time. How many times do you have to hit bullseye before you believe that the person's pretty good at throwing darts? I don't understand why that's said and still believed by so many, because it is such a powerful system.
Exactly. And let's extrapolate this out from astrology, because not everybody listening to this is an astrologer. We can break this down in a Western esoteric tradition format to include pretty much everything. Invocation, that's prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Yep.
Manifestation, well, that's sympathetic magic. Like attracts like. We can break down each one of these subjects to show that the only ignorance are those people that have chosen not to explore it.
And that's so many different avenues of things that people spit on it and naysay it. I've talked about this because I'm obviously very big into the paranormal world, and I go over the country and do things with my teams. And so many people are like, you really believe that stuff? I've never had anything happen. And people have heard, my listeners have heard me say this 100 times. When was the last time you went to an abandoned, haunted location by yourself, all cameras and everything turned off, and you just sat and talked to the spirits? Or when was the last time you walked out into the depths of the woods and sat in the nighttime and talked out loud and asked, if there's anything there that would like to communicate with me, come forward, I'm here to talk with you? And the answer is always, I never have. I'm like, well, then how would you expect that to happen? Unless it falls on your doorstep, on your lap, it's not going to happen unless you seek it out and you put the time and effort into it. And it's the same thing with anything. Astrology, doesn't matter what it is. If you're not putting the time in to see the power and resonance that it can give you, you're never going to receive that power and resonance. If you stay blocked, you are just that. You're blocked.
Exactly. And I agree with you 100%. And that is one of the biggest arguments. Really, magic, modern spirituality, astrology, they all fall into the category of soft sciences rather than hard sciences, meaning they still use scientific method. However, the interpretation is subjective. The difference between a hard science and a soft science is that a hard science is more like mathematics. A soft science is biology, anthropology, psychology, astrology. It's seeing the facts and interpreting them in context of the overall environment. And the reason this matters is that for any of you that are out there that enjoy experimentation, you want to create a large sample size. And then when you arrive to your conclusions, you can say, well, I've got all this data to back it up. And if someone complains to you, then you can easily say, well, what's your data set?
Yep.
And they'll say, none. Well, then there you go. Your opinion, much like probably your existence, doesn't matter.
That's it. That's 100% it. Is so many people. Yeah, like where's you're telling me it doesn't exist. I got this much information to show you all the reasons and experiences I've had. Where's your book to show me that it doesn't? And then, like you said, people, I don't have one. Well, then shut up, because your opinion means nothing. And
Exactly. And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday or earlier today, the fact that in ancient Egypt, they did not believe everybody had a soul.
I think I read that before somewhere.
You have to develop a soul. If you don't develop a soul, you don't have a soul, and that's the beginning and the end of it. So they were very big proponents of the fact that you have to personally develop. If you don't personally develop, you don't have a soul. So when we bring that forward to modern times, yeah, you're damn right, it's savage, and I flip and love it for that reason. When we bring that forward to modern times, then what that means is, do you have the data set to back up what you're saying? Well, no, I read it on Reddit. Well, then it doesn't matter what you got to say. You got no soul.
And
You
I think
have to have the substance to back it up.
And I think that bleeds over into some other traditions. I mean, obviously, I'm very big into Qliphothic magic. I'm very big into diabolism. And we obviously follow the coterie of Samil, my cult. We follow, obviously, the serpent bloodline. We follow the blood of Cain. And we look at it as, some people get confused. So you believe that your blood's actually different. Well, you could say that, but no, it means that you have awoken the aspect within you to find that black light, to find that venom or that bloodline of the serpent within you. And as you awaken it, it starts to change everything about your life, and you grow it from there. So that is the difference between clay-born and serpent-born, is that we all were made of clay. Even if you follow the blood of Kingu, which we've talked about, it still was within the clay. It's just that some awoken to that venom or that blood within them, and others remain clay. They remain golems. So you awaken to it and grow it. And just like you said with the Egyptian belief, then you have to discover and enhance and aid that soul or that spirit to grow, or it's not going to be there. And I'm very big on that in different terminologies, but absolutely, that's how we believe and how we practice.
That's one of the benefits I got from working with Draconian left-hand path magic. You're created. Everybody's created. What do you get out of it? How do you develop? Where do you increase your personal power? Where do you say this is not enough? Yeah, Brittany, it's a good one. I encourage you to check out some of the resources that Frater Crow has to share, as well as Draconian left-hand path traditions, because they're basically saying the same thing using different language.
Absolutely.
And that idea is everybody's created, but that does not mean everybody's equal. That does not mean that everybody's spiritual path will look the same. It's very Promethean. You have to reach up and grasp the fire from the gods and steal it from them and bring it back to you. Whether you're a Canaanite, whether you work with Kingu, whatever your paradigm is, it's yours for the taking. And if you choose not to take it, that's fine. But you're not going to achieve the same success as someone who has grasped the fire from heaven.
Yes, and I think, and I confuse a lot of people, and I love doing that, because within my diabolism, I constantly quote the Bible, and people always say like what the hell, man? Like, what kind of Satanist or diabolist does this? And I'm like, I'm not like you. I don't care to be. I'm my own, and I use the messages of what you would feel as my opposition to help explain my beliefs within the left-hand path. I'm taking the opposite words and using them, because if you look at Christianity, especially the New Testament, Jesus again and again is telling you exactly this same message. Look within yourself and find that and awaken. Whoever looks inside themselves and finds me finds the kingdom of glory. It's because as you awaken that spark within yourself, you can reach the levels of heaven. And it doesn't have to be at such a contextual base level. It goes into that mysticism, that esotericism behind his words, and it's found in so many places. You awaken the spark. That is what Knights of the Nephilim is if you are a Knight of the Nephilim, you are the one who received the spark from the Grigori, and you have awoken that and grown from it. You are the renowned, the men of old. So it's everywhere, guys. Find it within yourself. Doesn't matter, as Bill said, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. They all say it. It is the perennial philosophy.
And really there's two deeper levels here. The first one is antinomianism, and the second one is heresy. So let's break these down. Antinomianism is standing against the norm, standing against the dominant culture. And a lot of left-hand path practitioners choose to embrace that from a perspective of rebellion. Okay, fine, good. But you have to look at the greater paradigm. And especially here in the United States, right now the greater paradigm is division. So if you want to be antinomian, you have to be based on unity.
Yeah.
Heresy. The etymology of the word heresy comes from the ancient Greek, and it means to seek knowledge. It doesn't tell you where to find the knowledge. It tells you to seek it. And the reason that matters is because two of my favorite phrases are from the Bible. One, the kingdom of God is within, which is the basic precept of the left-hand path.
Absolutely, 100%.
And then the second one is from the book of Revelations, I, Jesus, am Lucifer.
Yeah, and I've made that comparison. I actually lost I guess you could call him a friend, but he wasn't a friend. I had someone that was very well known in the occult scene, very popular author, and he got very furious about the fact that I made a parallel one time about Lucifer and Jesus being the same being. And as you see my hat here, Lucifer, shout out to Jimmy for the hat, man. I appreciate it. There is that parallel. They're both called the Morning Star. They're both talking about being the light that awakens. So there's a lot of things hidden in that book that most people don't understand that can be used no matter what your faith system is. It's only when you add in religion to it that it puts you in a box. It is a book of belief, just like the Bhagavad Gita, or just like the Upanishads, just like any of these amazing tomes that are out there. You can find truth no matter what background you come from. But when you add the religion, it's going to tell you can't believe certain things. Well, no, you can believe anything you want. You just have to discover it for yourself.
At the time it was collected, it was the one central source for wisdom in the ancient world. And it included such hit topics as it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to be an adulterer. We have the Ten Commandments, which are based on the Code of Hammurabi, to prove the point.
Yeah.
Now the problem is it's become dated, and good. It should be dated because it shows that we're growing as a species. The problem is people today think that it's not dated at all, and then, like you hinted at, you attach religious dogma to it. It creates a real problem. And the reason that I'm breaking all this down is to show that you can be as anti-Christian or as anti-Bible as you want, but if you neglect it, you're really doing yourself a disservice. It is the book of the adversary if you take such a path, but it's also a book that lets you know when it was compiled, this was the greatest tome of wisdom in the world. So that should not be thrown out entirely. For example, there is a book, I don't remember because I don't care. There is a book in the New Testament where one of the apostles, here again, don't know, don't care. They were talking about the fact that they received a letter from one of their congregants saying, I live in this big city and all of these people take a little bit from this spiritual path, and when the path gets hard, they jump to this spiritual path, and when the path gets hard, they jump to this spiritual path. So they wind up being eclectic, but they have no deep understanding of any of them. What do I tell them? You and I can relate to this.
Yes.
So the response to the letter is, well, you tell them that's fine, but if every time you hit a stumbling block, you jump to something else, your faith is never tested. So how can you truly gain wisdom? You're jumping from one fad to another.
And I tell a lot of people nowadays that that has become a problem in our modern world because there's so many teachers out there, there's so many online courses out there, and I have had so many people come to me over the years, and they're like, "Well, I started with this course, but then I got interested in this one, and I jumped to that one. I never finished the first one, but then in the middle of that one, I found two more, and I started those." And I'm like, "So you've done like 14 courses?" I'm like, "What have you learned?" "Well, I learned a bunch of tidbits of things." I'm like, "But you've never fleshed out any of them to actually bear the fruit that they give you. You gotta work with that. It's fine if you want to learn other things. Spend a year or 2 years working your ass off on that specific path. And then if you want to try something else out, that's fine. But then you still maintain that path unless you abandon it for some reason and then take on the other. And over the years, what you'll find is all those paths will converge together and you'll create your path by taking all those eclectic pieces and making what is yours, not his, hers, they, or them. It is yours. And that is done through trying different things, but not just simply abandoning things left and right. And I feel like that is one of the biggest problems is there's so many outlets, TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Snapchat and all these things, and everybody's on there being an influencer, right? And now you don't know where to turn, and there's so much contradicting information that you just can't stick with anything. You have to go with what calls to you. But if it calls to you, if it truly calls to you guys, then there's a reason for that. And how dare you then abandon it 3 weeks later whenever something else calls to you? You
And
never
that's
fleshed it
the
out.
real and that's the real essence of it there. What kind of faith is it that has never been tested? I hit roadblocks in my path, in my faith, whatever you want to call it. I hit them flipping daily. Do I stop? No. I'm the obstinate bastard that says, okay, well, this is the roadblock. We're either going to go through it or around it.
Yep.
Either way, I ain't stopping because I ain't dead. And when I'm dead, then you really got to worry because I'm not limited by physical requirements such as eating and paying taxes. No, then the gloves are off. This is all just sparring practice. So you can give me your answers now or give me your answers later. Either way, my faith is unshaken. It's that poem from the British poet William Ernest Henley, Invictus. Do you know it?
I'm trying to think. I probably have read it at one point in time because obviously I know the name and I know the author or the writer. I'm just trying to picture it in my mind what it said.
So the background is, long story short, he was a double amputee from the Crimean War. And his poem Invictus, I encourage everybody to read. But long story short, it is him saying it's like the book of Job from the Bible. You can do whatever you want to me. My head is bloodied but unbowed. I will not stop until I get my answers. Aleister Crowley echoed this with his magical motto, Perdurabo. In more contemporary times, there was a magician by the name of Frater WIT, which was short for whatever it takes.
Okay, I love that.
And right, and the essence is the same. You throw me these things, I'm going to go around them, I'm going to go through them, I'm going to go over them, whatever it takes to get to the end result. And that is exactly, funny enough, that is exactly in line with what the Bible was saying. The Bible was saying if you hit a roadblock and you jump ship, what kind of person are you? You want to dive deep to the gold that is buried. And the reason that we have to dive deep is Pluto and Hades, because it's the underworld that contains the gold.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, And I think a lot of people misunderstand that because they hear about dark practices, and some people get lost in the romanticism of it. But the dark practices and the light practices are needed. There should be a counterbalance between them. I have been big on saying before that before someone journeys into the Qliphoth, someone should work the Sephirotic tree. You should climb up it to learn what it has and then down it. Don't go into the dark if you haven't found your light, because you'll stumble around and get hurt. But if you found that inner light by working the tree of life, by working, through the Sephiroth, then you can then carry that light into the Qliphoth and work through those unresolved shells and be able to gain a lot from that. Whereas the message, like, you just want to look at it as, oh, it's evil. No, we need to come into full terms with all aspects of ourself and reality. And if you're abandoning a very huge portion of who and what you are, then you'll never become whole. And how can you ever ascend if you're not whole? You're leaving a lot of weight behind, tethering you here. And I think that that's unfortunate that so many people feel that way. And I think there's some comments coming in right now. Foxy Joe, for example, but I accept Jesus as my one true Lord and Savior. That's fine. And what you'll find with my show, Foxy Joe, is that as a diabolist, I might have different views than you on things. I'm never going to bash you and tell you that you can't have that faith system. And so many of the people that are in the realm that I am do. They blaspheme anything that's Christian. Do I agree with Christianity? No, I don't. But do I respect some of the fruit that it has brought? Yes, absolutely, I do.
And so let's take that and run with it, because I love talking about Jesus. I was talking about Jesus to a left-hand path friend of mine last night. Jesus is fantastic. He's cool enough that there was a song written in the 70s about it, about getting right with Jesus. Love the dude. He owed me $20 for years. He paid it back. He was a necromancer. Fantastic. Love it. Did a necromantic ritual with him. He and I are copacetic. And the reason that I want to highlight this a bit is because if you really get into the details of the story of Jesus the Christ, what you find out is that, hello, meep, is that you find out that his story is an extrapolation and a continuation of ancient Egyptian teachings. So what he represents is rooted in ancient Egypt, which means if you study him but don't study ancient Egypt, you're dishonoring him. If you study ancient Egypt and you don't study him, you're dishonoring where their tradition grew. And if you look into the missing years of his life, when he traveled to Egypt and India, what you find out is that he is educated in everything that we're talking about tonight, which includes the Qliphoth. Now, the reason that matters is because when, according to a Christian and Judaic mythology, when light came to the earth, the shells of the Qliphoth shattered, and the shells were replaced with the spheres of the Sephiroth, hence the tree. And when we're working with the Qliphoth, we're working with the broken shells and that which was left behind. Now, the reason this is important is because it means when you work with the Qliphoth, you're working with the understanding of Jesus the Christ, but from the idea that he's only the newest fad.
Yeah. He's actually the replacement of what originally was there. And
exactly.
And the Qliphoth has a lot of resonance for those that don't understand, because if we look at them as vessels that shattered because they couldn't take on the full force of the divine, then we have to understand as these vessels filled and they shattered, well, now they're running over, right? So not only did they have that essence within them, but the outside is now dripped and coated with it. And as they shattered and fell down to what we understand is the Qliphoth, or to Malkuth, which is hell, this is where we're at now. We're standing in it. And it is made of remnants not only that contained it within, but has also run on the outside. It is emanating so much of that original divine essence. So while it has been shattered and has fallen, and the whole Tikkun Olam, we're supposed to repair the vessels, that's great, but we have to understand that there's a lot of resonance. So if the divine oil is all around us, then there's a lot of things that can be gained by working with it, even if you want to consider it as denigrated or evil.
Exactly. And there's a couple final points to put on this. First of all, many left-hand path practitioners take issue with Jesus,
Yeah.
which is just a sign of their unhealed spiritual wounds,
Fully.
regardless of whether you see him as the oppressor or something that's outdated. It really doesn't matter. You got baggage, fix your shit. The second thing is, on a deeper level, this is something I presented on the Left Hand Path Consortium in Indianapolis, Indiana in 2014, which was just the simple idea that Jesus is the flip side of Lucifer, but also Jesus's best friend was Judas.
Yeah. That's why
Because
even in the Gospel of Judas, before he was crucified, he whispered some secrets to Judas, who then went and turned him in. We think of Judas as this evil character who betrayed him. But in the Gospel of Judas, it seems like he almost told Judas to do it. He'd go and turn me in. This has to happen for what is to come. And what came?
exactly,
Christianity came. So it was almost
exactly.
like, let me martyr myself for a religion to be created that'll take over the world in my name. I don't think he meant for it to be what it has turned into today, but he did want to spark a revolution, as he was always about revolution. He was flipping tables. He was not happy with the established order of things, whether it was religion or politics. Jesus was a rebel, and in some of those Gnostic texts, it talks about him cursing people. As you said, Bill, he was a sorcerer. It talked about him beating his sandals, the dust from it, which was a curse back then. If you beat your sandals at someone, you were cursing them and their family.
Exactly. And from a metaphysical perspective, what you get is you get this extrapolated existential idea. Picture it. I'm not going to go into the whole Golden Girls thing, but picture it. On the other side of the veil, Jesus talking to Judas, saying, hey, man, I'm about to go down and do this major thing, but I need you to do this for me.
Yeah.
And Judas said, okay, I'm your Huckleberry. I'm your ride or die. Let's do this. And then they came down into physical form and they did it.
Yeah.
And the justification or the explanation of this is just that you would not ask your casual friend to do something like that. You would ask your brother. You would ask your twin flame. You would ask that part of your soul to do something that extreme.
And it is extreme, because you're asking your brother to do the craziest thing in the world. I need you to come down and do this, and I need you to be the reason of my death and understand I accept this. And I'm asking you to do this for all that is to come. And I mean, can you imagine having to turn your own brother in?
And that, my friend, is left-hand path. I
Yeah.
don't care what you believe. That's left-hand path to say, I got to go down and tell people the kingdom of God is within. All of their personal power is within them. As soon as they pray to God, they are pissing away their personal power. And I need you to betray me, which means you'll be hated for all time, but you will be the most exalted.
Yep. Like, what a
It
badass.
doesn't get much more, it doesn't get much more badass left-hand path than that.
I agree, you know, and people say, well, you know, if we were to go by this thinking, they start to argue that, well, you know, he hung himself because he couldn't live with what he did. No, he probably hung himself to be back with his brother again in the land of Nod. He said, you know what, I don't want to be here. I did my mission. My mission's complete, to do the task that no one else could do. My brother did the task that no one else could do. We finished our mission. We're going home.
Exactly. We're done. Deuces. We're out. We flip tables. We piss people off. We're done.
And that's why it was known whenever he said in the Gospel of Judas, he said that my father is not the blood-soaked faced angel Soclos. I come from the land of Barbelo. It comes from Sophia. So I come from wisdom and gnosis and knowledge, and, you know, I'm going to return back there. My father isn't Yahweh like everybody wants to believe he is. That's not who my father is. That's somebody else. So I think it's a beautiful thing for especially Christians out there, for anybody listening who has never read any of the Gnostic texts. Whether you want to believe it or not believe it is fine, but am firm on everyone should have a multi-place of perspective. So then you truly can compare what you do believe and compare to what you've just been taught. There's a huge difference of reading 20 things and picking these 3 to follow, or only knowing these 3 and standing by them vehemently because you don't know the other 17. And that's a lot of our culture.
Well, right, and you know what's funny is you're really hitting a hot button, and I'm going to throw myself under the bus because this is fun. The term is fascism.
Yeah.
If you read one book and you believe it and your mind is not open to other perspectives, you're a fascist. Not in the political sense for all of you people that got issues with it, but in the actual definition of the word, because we're all adults and we all use the dictionary. Fascist means closed-minded thinking. So you can be a Christian.
We have some closed-minded thinking coming in right now. Max is putting some things up, and I'm not here to try to throw you out under the bus, Max, but I am going to.
Left-hand path is marked. Well, to a certain degree, it is.
But then he also says Jesus is service to others, which in a way it is. But then here's the part that I don't agree with. Left-hand path is generally an atheist route. Not necessarily.
That's not true. But I will meet you halfway, Max. There are a good majority of left-hand path practitioners out there that believe it is atheist. Yeah. So if you have met many of those people, I completely understand where you're coming from, and you're right. But there are just as many people who say it's not atheist. So I encourage you to just talk to people, because you're going to get a variety of responses.
You are, and off of what Bill's saying, Max, is someone could blaspheme me and say, well, he openly admits he's a devil worshiper. Yes, I do. Now, here's the thing with that. I feel that my devil worship is some of the most holy shit that you could ever do. And why do I say that? Because I'm very firm in belief of trying to reach back to the ultimate primordial womb of Ayin. My goal is to surpass any heavens that you believe in, to surpass any of that and go back to the absolute black cloud of chaos. Now, you could say that's heresy, that's evil. A lot of people do think that. But on the same token, you're talking the true God, not any demigods. You're talking the primordial wellspring of source. So if my goal was to reach back to the ultimate source and wellspring, that is the most holiest thing you could ever do. You are going back to the God. So it all depends on your place of pivot. Is wanting surpassed realms that are created maybe for heaven, or maybe to contain us and keep us in a certain will? Is that heaven or is that hell? Everybody's going to have a different perspective on it. But mine is to do good, to live a good life, to help people, but to think sensibly and to use wisdom that was given to us, but to ultimately reach a place of I guess you could say chaos, but not chaos in a bad way. Chaos in the ultimate potential. That storm cloud has the potential to do anything, as it's created everything that you know. And Bill, you've talked about this on other shows. A lot of perspective was skewed, because if you want to look at the ultimate wellspring of source, it was a feminine power. It was the womb that created everything. And whenever things got deviated to more of a masculine principle in the world, and we have to have male gods, and Yahweh is a man, and he's the father, it changed perspectives, and it did a lot of damage to the world, I think, completely cutting out that feminine principle and so much of what we believe in, or what others believe in.
It did. And really, I did write an essay about this. You're right. The rise of the patriarch, the patriarchal structure, however you want to call it, really started with the 4th dynasty in ancient Egypt in the Old Kingdom. Before that, it was more of a balance. That was the time when Ra and Horus got associated with the sun god, and also got associated with masculinity. Now, the reason I point this out is because we can trace this back to a definitive starting point, and we can also look before that to see how things are more balanced, and therefore, when we study that, we get the wisdom. And there are people.
I was starting
no, that's fantastic.
Question.
And there are people
Yeah, there are people with
Yep.
consciences that they follow, that they are people that do anything that benefits them if they can get away with it, good and evil. And that's true. I mean, you have a lot of people, but that is, Max, that's on both sides. And that's what's so interesting about it is good and evil lies on both camps. You have Christians who have the best intentions that want to help people and that they are doing their own work to better themselves and to grow. That's great. You have Christians that only condemn and blaspheme everything and judge everyone, and they're doing no personal growth themselves, but yet they condemn everyone else. That's evil. You have people on the left-hand path who only want to live deliciously, and they think that that means indulge in every carnal appetite that they can, while never actually doing any real work. That's evil. You have people on the left-hand path that do every bit of work that Christians do. I have a very, very devout practice that is very reminiscent of some of the most ascetic monks that you've ever met. And it might seem weird because I have these shows and things, I'm holding multiple cards, right? But my practice would, in a lot of eyes, be very holy if it wasn't for the overtone and frosting of dark deities. Because that's how I recognize and I understand the lore to reach that divine pinnacle. So you're going to have
and let's play devil's advocate, because I'm not naive. I've been doing this a bit, and I know there are Satanists, left-hand path practitioners, devil worshippers, whatever you want to call them, that match the stereotypes of Christianity. Sacrificing animals, looking for virgins, all of that silly shit from the satanic panic in the late 70s and the early 80s. There are left-hand path practitioners that do that. There is no denying that. That has been 100% recorded with factual data. Now, the reason I point this out is because in a modern context, those people are not condoned by the majority of left-hand path practitioners. The majority of left-hand path practitioners know about them and say, we don't want anything to do with that because they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yep. We look at them as very devolved, where I have a lot of Satanists, and that's why I bash Satanists all the time. It's fun, even though I fall into their camp, right? But I get added by so many of them. I'm like, never in your life would I accept your ad. And I don't accept most people's ads, but definitely not those. And here's how you spot them. And I'm going to have fans out there right now that are going to be like, fuck this guy and never listen to me again. When you add me and you have 19 pictures on Facebook and not one of them is your face, and every one of them is some type of evil picture of Satan, and all of your posts, every single one of them through like 30 that I scroll through real quick when I'm seeing if I want to add you, is just pretty much dark imagery of like burning churches. And it's the stereotypical, like, okay, yeah, this person's fully on the lowest level of left-hand path that there is. You're de-evolved, guys. You have a long way to go to even reach the basic levels of things. And that's not to bash you. I'm hoping that this is a spark to the inferno that'll help you grow. And I know some people will take offense to that, but there's so many of you out there that your definition of being a left-hand path practitioner, as a diabolist, as a Satanist, whatever have you, is just spitting blasphemies and doing whatever you want. That's not faith. That's just being an anarchist. That's all you're doing. You're just finding ways to rebel, and that has its own place. A lot of us had to rebel at one point from a structure to find a new one. That should be very short-lived, and a lot of people spend their entire life there. So please find a way to climb up out of that, because we do kind of disown you. So whenever real practitioners are talking, it's like, oh yeah, we don't associate. Don't go near them. And that's right, how you know.
It's the same as Christians who disavow. God, what's the word? I don't even know. The crazy people that speak in tongues in churches. What is that? It's not Protestantism.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I just don't even care enough. But it's those people. The same way Christians denounce them, we denounce those kind of left-hand path practitioners. And the reason I point this out is to show that regardless of your belief, there are extremists in both categories. So if you can say, well, yeah, those people are Christians, but they're not the majority of Christians, then left-hand path practitioners can say, well, yeah, they're left-hand path practitioners, but they're not the majority. And the reason this
I was just
matters
about
is
to say
because
it.
it illustrates,
We,
thank you, Pentecostals, there, leave it to Amadeo. The reason this matters is because we live in a polarity-based existence. Right, wrong, within, without, up, down, left, right. So if it's true on one side of the equation, and this is science, Newton's third law, look it up. If it's true on one side of the equation, it's true on the other side. So just like Christians have the kind of Joel Osteens and the other shit for brains that they disown, then the left-hand path has the groups that they disown, such as those Satanists or whatever you want to call them, and Order of the Nine Angles, and all of these crazy extremists. We all got our issues, so we're all in this together.
Yep, no, 100%. And a couple comments here I want to jump into. We haven't even started diving into the questions. It's just more of a
No, this is
conversation
good
tonight, which I love. And there's a book I want to throw out to one of our comments. I'm just looking for it right now. I wish I could say I remember all the books I read, but I read about 100 books a year. So to try to remember titles is damn near impossible these days. Rachel, let me see if I can find it for you. I'm trying to as quickly as possible. So needless to say, while I'm looking for it, Rachel's comment said, I am struggling to find my past. I have no Christianity, or I think it's supposed to say, I've known Christianity all of my life, but I'm finding that I'm struggling to believe it as I get older. And the more I watch you, the more I believe the beliefs that you are talking about. And that's not uncommon.
Right, no,
Rachel.
not at all. And so you're on the right path. And I don't know you, but I'm going to throw this out there anyway because you're listening. I think you're kind of doubting yourself too much. Now, the reason I say that is because there are a lot of parallels between Christianity and the left-hand path. So if there are that many parallels, who says you cannot embrace both? Jesus said the kingdom of God is within. The left-hand path teaches that the keys to the kingdom are within. Jesus said, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. That is an astrological phrase. When the moon goes through certain phases in the sky, it is going through a mansion. Jesus said, I am Jesus. I am Lucifer. Okay, well, there you go. Study Luciferianism and you will get to know Christ. And the Old Testament, the whole story of Hallel, and the roots, I believe it's in Ezekiel, of Lucifer, that has nothing to do with Christianity. That was a parabolic story that was shared with others. In the Old Testament, they talk about worshiping the golden calf. The golden calf was Hathor, the ancient Egyptian goddess. So the whole thing was allegory for saying, don't worship ancient Egyptian teachings. And yet they're based in goddess worship. If you look at one of the commandments of the 10 commandments, it says you will have no other gods before me. Well, that doesn't mean that there's only one God. It means there are many gods and you are free to worship them. So there is no,
and I think that's big
there
to know
is no
that.
finite line saying it's this or the other. Aleister Crowley said it best. He said part of the psychological development is the union of opposites. When you study something, quote from Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, if you want to know something, you have to study all of the aspects.
No, and I think that's big. You have to, like we said earlier, you have to look at it from multiple perspectives and see it from different angles, because it doesn't mean it's going to change your faith. It might actually enhance your faith. And the book that I was going to tell you about, and there's so many great pieces of fruit, it's called Jesus and the Lost Goddess. And that's by Timothy Freak and Peter Gandy. And the reason I mention this is it's going to blow your mind if you read it, because it talks about an aspect of how Jesus and Moses are the exact same character, that they took the story of Moses and they reiterated it into the story of Jesus. They both were they both disappeared to Egypt.
And that's actually why I was
then they
looking
both
off
emerged.
cameras. I thought I had that right here on my shelf.
Oh, did you? Great book. And it talks about Sophia, and it talks about different aspects that is showing you that you don't, it doesn't mean you don't have to believe in Christianity. It might give you a different version of Christianity than you've ever known. And it might be the version that you fall in love with, because if you look at ancient Christianity, it's, to me personally, a much more beautiful thing than what is given today as being Christianity. And also, you have to understand, where geographically are you learning your Christianity? Because I will tell you, Christianity in other countries is very different than American Christianity. Ethiopia, for example, still follows a very, very old form of Christianity, and they still have the Book of Enoch in their tome of Christianity, and they have other non-canonical books that it was removed from the Bible. They still have in their most ancient version of the Bible that's in existence, and a lot of fruit there, but it's going to be very different than what you've been taught in churches here in the United States. So I think that that's important. Now let's get through some of these comments, because I want to make sure we don't miss any. I don't know which direction, Max, you were wanting us to answer on this, but I would go with Satanist. It says, if your car's broke down on the side of the road, cell phone dead, no traffic, do you want the car that picks you up being a Christian or Satanist? I'd probably rather have it be a Satanist, to be honest with you.
I was going to say, I'll take the Satanist, because if you read the Satanic Bible, one of the 9 tenets is do what you can to help others. Yep. And if they betray you, well, then have no problem destroying them. But if they don't betray you, then you just made their life better. And that's the whole point of Satanism.
Yep. And I think that people give that a bad rap too, because even if you look at LaVey, which I don't follow a lot of LaVey's tenets, but what I do, and I shouldn't say his tenets, but his overall structure, I have some differences there. But people a lot of times have a problem with the Darwinism, that like we are above the rest. Why? Why do you, just as we talked about earlier, finding the spark within you compared to the mundane Claiborne, that can be on any camp. You can be a Christian and say, you know what, I see myself being above a lot of these rum-dums that are running around that don't seem to understand any of the deeper concepts. The whole point is evolution, folks. You should be evolving, and there's nothing wrong with understanding and noticing your own evolution and noticing that others are not evolving, and that you're saying, you know what, doesn't mean you have to treat them like shit and say I'm better than you, but spiritually I have evolved more than you, and I have a hard time recognizing or connecting with you, because we're not in the same place. Because as you start to unfold, guys, you have a really hard time being around people that haven't unfolded.
And I'm going to be the cynic here. The Christian will drive by and pray and say, I hope God sends them someone to help them, not realizing they are the ones that God sent to help them.
Yeah. And that's it. You were the messenger. You failed your task.
Yeah, you failed your test.
Dwayne said, at Frater Crow, agreed. I will in an upcoming federal court of law here in New York State for cybercrime of multiple YouTube content creators for illegal surveillance through illegal live streaming of me.
I'm in. If you're asking for help, shit, hit us both up.
And then we have, hey, I'm not sure what that was in regards to, but.
Well, I'm reminded of the old 80s song. We've seen that name a couple times. Amadeo, Amadeus, Amadeus, that whole thing from the 80s. Fantastic. Good name.
And then send me that messenger. Rachel, I will. If I forget, please hit me up and I'll make sure I get you that title. And I can send you some other great books that'll give you some thought. A lot of people get surprised when they come to me and they say, Crow, teach me. And then I send them a ton of stuff to read that has nothing to do with diabolism whatsoever. And they're like, one of the first books I tell you to read usually is going to be the Kabbalion, because I would tell you the Hermeticum, but it's a little too deep if you're not versed in it. So I say, you know what, read something simple like the Kabbalion, because as you start to understand those principles, that even though it's not dark whatsoever, will start to shake your cage a little bit.
And I'm going to suggest a book here. I talked about how Christianity is an extension of ancient Egyptian teachings. The book that made it click for me was Hidden Wisdom by Tim Wallace Murphy. Now, there's a heavy Masonic influence to it, but basically he illustrates how you had the Egyptian religion for 3,000 years, the longest running religion on the planet, and it has morphed into Jesus the Christ and Christianity, and he shows it more or less as a third testament of ancient Egyptian teachings. So for those of you that are interested in that, I encourage you to check that out, as well as Outside the Circles of Time. It's another book. The author's last name is Clark. It's a slightly different take. It's the idea that the concept and the relationship of the holy guardian angel is one we should cultivate, because when we do, we align ourselves with an order of beings that are outside the circle of time, and their chief or their main adept is Jesus.
And I think, and that's where people can find those parallels, is like, really, that's what all of us should be doing, no matter how you want to dress it up. Our whole point is to go through practices to allow us to align to that holy guardian angel, your holy daemon, your super consciousness, whatever names you want to give it. Is when you tap into that, which is very foreign to who you are now, but it is who you truly are. As you tap into that, you are going to unfold in ways that you can't understand. And if more and more people did that, it would change the overall vibration of this entire world. And it would be a very different reality than the one we live in. Now, Bill, I want to jump in. The guy that left the one comment, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's saying, I'm referring to you two cyber criminals as well. Bro, I don't even know who you are, but you go ahead and take that to court, brother.
Dude, hit me up, man.
This live stream is currently being recorded for my upcoming federal court case for legal representation for illegal surveillance for illegal live streaming, which violates. Yeah, bro, you're not even saying anything. If you read your own words, you're fucking talking nonsense, brother.
So just tell me this, man. You're spewing that. That's fine. I just need to know which lawyer I should contact, because I got a list, and we ain't breaking any laws.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Now, putting that aside, for those of you that are left-hand path practitioners that might be thinking we're going a little white light and sunshine here, I would like to remind you of Thagirion, the sun behind the sun, the Qliphoth of Tifereth. So if Jesus is the sun, then the sun behind the sun is Judas, and we just illustrated how that relationship is one and the same and one of brotherly love. If you want to know the Qliphoth, you have to first learn the light. Now, granted, to be fair, the cynic in me says that wherever light goes, it finds darkness waiting for it. So the darkness is primeval, it's primordial, but you can't appreciate the darkness until you have a sense of the light.
I 100% agree. Sorry, I was reading one of these comments trying to.
No, that's fine, man. It's all good.
I was booting, dude. He's booted now. He might be able to see us, but I'm sick of seeing his bullshit.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It ain't gonna be the first time someone's pulled this shit on me.
Oh no,
be the last.
Not at all. And Emily, I'm looking for your question. Emily posted. I posted a question earlier, and I somehow missed it, Emily. So hold on, let me try to see it.
Yeah, we missed it. We'll get you taken care of.
Let's see. Let's scroll back. I still had some questions. I got to at least jump into a couple of them. I feel like at the end, what the hell did I do tonight? I didn't
right, no, exactly. This is great fun. This is great fun. As soon as we're getting haters,
you know it's working good. Emily says, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to astrology. Can you please educate me on what information or guidance is to be gained by having a birth chart done and analyzed by a professional such as yourself?
Okay, so we're going to break this down. I'm going to give you 2 levels to it. The first level is, if you have your astrological chart done, or if you choose to do it yourself, you get insight into your strengths and weaknesses in this lifetime. So you find out what you're good at, you find out what you're not good at, you find out what challenges you can expect through life. You can also find out strengths and things that will go smoothly for you. So that is the Western approach to astrology. So that's piece number 1, is regardless of what you believe, you're still going to find out strengths and weaknesses of yours. Now, if you want to take it to an esoteric or a spiritual level, then what you find out is your soul's place in its overall development of its soul's journey from the split with spirit many lifetimes ago up until the reunion with spirit many lifetimes in the future. So you find out where you're at in that karmic journey, meaning what karma you have to deal with in this lifetime, what opportunities you have in this lifetime to create positive karma going forward in this lifetime and in the next, what ascended masters are good to work with to guide you in particular directions, also what you should possibly avoid when it comes to spiritually developing. There are many times I've done charts for people where it said avoid drugs and alcohol. There are plenty of times when I've done charts for people that said you don't have to listen to this particular teaching because you mastered it in a past life. In this lifetime, it's about exploring in this direction.
And
Sarah, don't worry. I got you covered. I smoked enough for us, and I still don't understand.
Yeah, I can't say I understood one damn word he was talking about. And yeah,
you're
Ryan,
right, Ryan. It is Bible study.
That's right. The Bible
Don't
study
give
the
us
right
a
way.
platform. We'll break that shit down all night long.
That's it. And there was a comment here. Where did it go? I don't know. I missed it. I thought I seen something come up, and now it's gone. Another thing that you can do through astrology readings is you can do a Qliphothic astrology reading where you can really align what Qlipha could be beneficial for you to work in, or what you should focus on, because there's some aspects there that you need to work through, or maybe you're just aligned with that Qlipha and you're going to find some great resonance and some things start to really unfold in your life as we talked about, or there's going to be Qlipha that you're just not going to really experience much. Natasha and I from the Coterie of Semil did we're almost finished. We've done an extensive Qliphothic journey since Devil's Night last year till Devil's Night this year. And we have been working each sphere day after day the whole year in some capacity or another, from thousands of ends to obviously full-blown ritual to study to everything in between. And some spheres, not a whole lot happened, and there's just minute activity. Other spheres were like hurricanes hitting us and throwing us for loops that we quite weren't ready for. So we were able to do some astrology readings of the Qliphoth later on and realized how amazing it was to see that what we were finding was exactly what we had experienced thus far. So we didn't read beforehand on the astrology reading. We didn't want to do that. We did it in hindsight to see how it lined up to what we experienced, and let me tell you. And then we still have 2 more to go, so we're finishing it out. And I got to tell you, it's been amazing. It's been a fruitful journey. It's not my first time through, but I'm ready to be done for a little bit. I'm ready to hit that marker and just take a step back for a little bit.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. That's why I wrote Qliphothic astrology, to put the power in the people's hands. If you know enough about astrology to know what signs are strong in your chart, what elements are strong in your chart, then you can take Qliphothic astrology to see, oh, I've got a good resonance with this Qliphoth. If you don't know anything about the Qliphoth and you're coming at it from an astrology perspective, then you can look at it and say, okay, I'm getting my education into this. And the reason this matters is because in your case, you're going to find out that what you experienced is validated. Okay, this Qliphoth did not 100%. Resonate with me. Oh, now that I look at my astrological chart, I see why. Or, oh, I didn't even look in this direction of the Qliphoth, and now that I look at my chart says I should look in this direction. Okay, and you get bigger results.
Yeah, because you might miss something. You might go through one of the Qlipha, do your whole workings. We spend, and there's different ways of doing it, but we like to be very thorough with it. So we're spending 2 months, or 1 month in this case, on each Qlipha. And then we're going to have a subsequent journey where we're doing strictly the tunnels. But you can do 1 or 2 months, and I don't think you should jump around. Do 1 or 2 months specifically with one sphere and work it for everything it has. But you might finish that sphere, then do that astrology reading and say, wait a second, it's telling me there's something major in the sphere and I didn't experience that. Well, then maybe you need to, as Bill said, maybe you need to go back and revisit that, because as you do, then all of a sudden, boom, I missed something. There was baggage that I didn't claim at the baggage check, and it's now been found. So I think that's important. We have a Emily says, thank you so much. I didn't realize there was so much to be gained. Emily, there's that and 500 times more than that. That's only a sprinkling of what can be gained. Kayleen said, what are your thoughts on Carl Jung's approach on things like shadow integration? I find a lot of parallels in my studies where he is referenced in left-hand path books. I'm gaining that his approach to shadow integration could be seen in Qliphothic work.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And you really kind of hit a note there that's going to make a lot of people angry. So be careful who you talk to about this subject, because Dr. Jung's idea was integrating the shadow. So first of all, that flies in the face of people who say you should transcend your shadow. So if you get those spiritual bypassing people that say the shadow is to be conquered, then you know you should not open your mouth about anything else having to do with this, because they can't handle it. Jung completely agreed in shadow integration. And yes, you are correct that you can take this and extrapolate it out and put it in context of the Qliphoth. There are the Qliphoth, the 10 Qliphoth. There are the 22 tunnels of Set. And to a crafty mind, you can easily parallel those 32 ideas to a lot of Jung's ideas. This is one of the things that Asenath Mason and I talked about a lot when we worked on the Tree of Qliphoth, Temple of Ascending Flame anthology, and her trilogy on the Qliphoth, and Qliphothic astrology by myself, and Oraculum Leviathan. We did consult the writings of Dr. Jung, and I just want to let you know that you're on point with your analysis. And if you want to take it deeper, there is fertile ground for you to do so.
And as Bill had mentioned, Kayleen, his books would be a very great way. I was doing what you were doing earlier. I'm looking up. There's a shelf above me, and I'm trying to reach it, but it's too far out of reach.
Right?
I'm like, that, you know, if you start to read through Bill's books, you're going to find a lot of what you're looking for there. There's a lot of parallels there. I seen Asenath Mason's reference to Jung a lot in her books. Yeah, so because that's there. I mean, a lot of his concepts very much bleed over into Draconian and left-hand path magic, and especially when you're working with the Qliphoth, because that really it's just a way of understanding it through a different lens. Was he working the Qliphoth? No, but was he understanding it from a different perspective? 100%. And I think his contribution to psychology and to magic is something that'll be here forever.
Exactly. And I like the way that you're thinking. To put it into astrological terms, you are approaching the subject from a humanist perspective, and usually that will get you very far before you get into the mystical perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to go. Now I am going to jump into some of these questions, damn it. So and I always come with way more than I need because I like to be extremely prepared. We had 30 questions tonight. We've gone through 2. So
fire away.
We're only going to hit a couple of them because honestly, guys, it's nice to have just a full-blown discussion. All of these episodes are discussions, absolutely. But tonight was a lot of fun, Bill, because we just were able to shoot the shit, back and forth and answer questions coming in from the fans. And I love that. So let's just jump into some random ones. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, fire away, man. We'll knock them out. And it's a good thing this is recorded because people can go back and process it later.
100%. Your background includes leadership in nonprofits. How does organizational work mirror esoteric lodge or coven structure?
So in a lot of ways, it mirrors it a lot. Without getting too deep into it, it's actually metaphysical common sense 101. If you have a lodge and you have this idea of a coven, I'm going to be that guy who says it don't mean shit until you make it legal.
Okay.
Because it's just a club. It's just a hobbydom. It's just a fandom. But as soon as you put pen to paper and you commit legally, that changes your paradigm. It makes it more real, but you also get more access to the benefits of the government because they see you are talking their language. So there's a lot of parallels there. Does that mean every coven and lodge has to be a nonprofit or whatever? No. But it does mean you should consider it, because then you put yourself on equal footing with all of the other religious organizations out there that are doing the same thing. So if you don't do it, you are choosing to play the victim.
And like you said, that's the huge thing, is if you take that much seriousness to do it, it does change your paradigm, because you now are that much more serious about it. Natasha and I, for the Coterie, we've talked about this in a couple past episodes. We are in the process of trying to purchase a full-blown church, an old decommissioned church, and make it into our religious building, that we will have sermons, we will have masses, we will have rituals, we will have lectures and classes. And we're doing so all by the book, all legally, because obviously I think that's the right way to do it anyway. But it does add that serious, and it kind of parallels initiation. Folks talk about initiation. If you have never been fully, truly initiated into something, you're still fine to walk your path solo, and that's okay, because the spirits will initiate you in their own way. But there is a mental and psychological shift when you go through an initiation, that it makes it more serious to you. It makes it more real to you. And there's a reason that you have to have that death and rebirth, because you are reborn into that current. And
exactly. And hit me up off conversation about that, and we'll talk about like the minutia and the nomenclature, and maybe we'll speed that process up.
that would be awesome.
It also, not only is it an internal shift, it's also an external shift. Because if I told the random John Q public on the street I have a coven, they wouldn't care. But if I said I have a 501c3, they would say, oh. So you extend the possible people that are interested in your work by speaking their language.
Yep, and that's what we're currently in. We've been having 501c3 conversations the last few weeks. We're like, we got to figure all these things out. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now. Now, this next question is almost an impossible one, and I don't blame you if you can't necessarily give me one. But it's saying, or I should say that I'm saying, having authored over 20 books, what has been your most personal transformative work that you've written for yourself?
So the funny thing is, I couldn't give you an answer to that a year ago, but I can give you an answer to that now.
Oh, awesome.
The single transformative book was the book that I released almost a year ago, Ubiquitous Consciousness. The reason it's the single most transformative book is that I did everything in it. Up till that point, I had someone do the cover, I had someone do the editing, I had someone do the formatting, and I did the writing. With that book, I did the editing, I did the formatting, I did the cover, I did the writing, I did it all myself. Now, the funny thing from a magical perspective is that that book is all about the connection that each one of us has with the holy guardian angel or the higher self.
Okay, we're dipping back into our just recent conversation. I love it.
Exactly, and I did that on purpose.
I love it. This
because
is great.
I was inspired by stories of Aleister Crowley and Israel Regardie, and they always talked about in the Golden Dawn system, when you've reached that knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel, you either fly or fail. And Regardie's perspective was very simple. You reach that and you continue to go. That becomes your foundation and you build from there. Now, in contrast, as soon as Aleister Crowley got to that initiation in the Golden Dawn is when he left. So then you can make the case that he failed in the Golden Dawn tradition, but since he did Libra Semek and all of his work later, he succeeded in his own tradition. So I figured I'd put myself on the cross of matter, the crucible of change, and see what happened. Did I fly or fail? And history is still out. Who knows?
I love that. And that leads so perfectly into my next question. You've worked with both the Golden Dawn systems and Thelemic traditions. What is the strongest similarities and differences that you've observed between them?
So the strongest similarities are the fact that the Thelemic system is built on a hybrid of Scottish Rite Freemasonry Blue Lodge work and the Golden Dawn. So in that way, Thelema is an extension of Golden Dawn teachings, just with a different skin on it for those of you that do a lot of online gaming. Now, the biggest difference is with the Golden Dawn tradition, you get more of an integration of the Christ concept and esoteric Christianity, which makes sense because it is an extension off of mystical Christianity that was around approximately 100 years before the Golden Dawn tradition came up. Whereas with Thelema, that veneer is replaced with Crowley's own Thelema. On one hand, that's a good thing because it shows an extension and a growth. On the other hand, that's a problem because many people that work with Thelema remove Christ and insert Horus in the same role. And that is not the intent of it.
Yeah, you're conflating one for the other, and it's not, it shouldn't be one or the other.
Exactly.
Now, changing gears here for a moment, your book Set and Anpu bridges Egyptian gnosis with Draconian currents. And going back to, we were just talking about initiation, how do you see Set and Anubis interacting in initiatory work?
So in initiatory work, it should be understood that Set is the great initiator. That is his whole role going back to the ancient kingdom of Egypt. So he is the initiator. However, having said that, Anubis is the initiator in the sense that the second greatest initiation we all have is the initiation into death. There are two great initiations all of us go through: when we're born and when we die. Set says there's a lot of little initiations in between, and he will be the guide to lead you through those. Anubis says, I was there at the beginning because that was a death in spirit to become flesh, and I will be there at the end because that will be the death of flesh into spirit. So they really work well together. You just have to be careful because Anubis is death, Set is initiation. And in the upcoming book by the author Judith Page, we're going to talk a lot about initiations. And I know she has a lot to say about ancient Egyptian initiations. So for those of you that are interested in that, I encourage you to check it out.
That's a good one right there to check out as well, guys. There's several other up here, but I can't read it fast enough to pull them down. I'm like, I'm just going to at least flash one.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I love that book. And as much as I put it out there as an act of love, the more time that has passed, the more it has dug in its heels and become a tree.
I love that, though. A lot of times it does that. What you say is already a powerful work. And over time, you start to realize that, once again, I always use that analogy of seeds. It plants seeds that grow a lot of other things. You're like, I'd never seen that coming, but it does that. And that's what's beautiful about esotericism, is that there's so many hidden gems that don't reveal themselves at first. And over time, they start to kind of shine through.
Exactly. And just to give a sneak peek to the listeners, because I'm under the effects of an NDA, I can't go into details, but I will say stay tuned for more information specifically about that book.
Oh, awesome. I love it. You heard it, guys.
A little esoteric burlesque.
I love it. Well, you heard it, guys. Be keeping an eye out. You've spoken at Pagan Pride events. You've spoken at international conferences and mainstream outlets. How do you tailor your esoteric teachings for the different types of audiences?
So I'm the guy you love to hate. And here's why. Because when I'm talking to an audience, I put things in their terms. So if you're a hardcore left-hand path practitioner and you see me in a public library, I'm probably going to make you mad because I'm couching things in a way that that audience will receive. But if you're an average person who sees me at a left-hand path conference, I'm probably going to make you mad because I'm using words you don't like. So when I was first getting started, this led to a lot of problems because people would say, oh, you're a hypocrite. Oh, you don't walk your talk. Oh, you're a fly-by-night kind of esotericist. But now that I've been in business 17 years and I've been doing this close to 40, that voice of criticism is going away. So what I do is exactly what we talked about at the top of the hour. I put it in terms that the audience will understand. That is a tribute to my Mercury. My Mercury is strongly placed in my chart, and Mercury is the planet of communication. That is a tribute to Anubis, who travels between the worlds. That is a tribute to Samael, because, of course, he corresponds to the Qliphoth of Mercury. That's a tribute to Mercury. It's a tribute to Hermes, Odin. Pick a deity. It's all the same thing. You don't talk to the CEO the same way you talk to the janitor. You don't talk to the child the same way you talk to the parent.
And that's it. That's 100%. I love that because you're someone who's very articulated in everything that you teach. And I think that that is really the way to resonate with people, is being able to know how and when and where to talk to different crowds, and do it in a way that they accept. Because I can all day long spit my ideologies at people and they'll be like, I don't resonate with that. But if I say it in a way, and that's why, once again, going back to like the Bible thing, I can talk to Christians all day and have them, as Rachel earlier said, you're making me really start to think differently about my faith. And it's never to blaspheme your faith. It's only to allow you to see it in a new light by hearing it in a different voice than you've ever heard it before.
Exactly. And that is my goal. It's not to push a doctrine. It's not to be dogmatic. It's to get you to reevaluate things on your own. It's something I learned many years ago. A good teacher tells you where to look. They don't tell you what to find.
Yep. That's a truly potent statement right there. We'll try to do 3 more, and then we're going to close this out, folks. We want to get through some of them, and thank you so much for sticking around. Spirit work and mediumship are central to your skill set. How do you personally discern between authentic contact and psychological projection?
So here again, I am that asshole. But in this case, I am that asshole towards myself and towards spirit. Because the way I handle it is scientific method. I put this out there. I get a message back from spirit. Does spirit give me a result? Yes or no? If it gives me a result, fantastic. If it does not give me a result, then I look at my methodology and see if I screwed up in my method. If I did not screw up in my method, and I did not get a result, then that means there's a good chance it's my own psychological baggage.
I think that's a pretty solid method right there.
So then the other half of that, and this particularly applies when we're talking about spirit guides, I hold my spirit guides accountable. So if I get a spirit that says this will happen, and it does not happen, then I tell the spirit to fuck off.
Yeah, it needs to live up to what it's telling you. Just like anybody else, if you have a neighbor and he keeps telling you he's going to do shit, and then he doesn't do it, how long are you going to hang out with him? You're not. There needs to be an understanding that you live by your word.
Exactly. So I am that medium. If I got it, and the reason that this matters is because many people feel that they are doing good or feel that they are doing lucky to contact a spirit at all. So in some ways, I am taking that for granted. And I'm not going to deny it. I'll own my privilege. But I just assume that if I'm contacting a spirit and I hear it, then it's legit until I'm proven wrong.
I think that's a nice way to go about it. So often they teach you in books, doubt it in every way until it proves that it's real. I'm like, I don't know. I kind of take an opposite perspective on that. As I, I want to hear what it has to say, because if I'm already going in not believing it, if you're having a conversation with someone, once again, just like I used that analogy a moment ago to the neighbor, if you're talking to someone and the whole time they're like, yeah, right, okay, and it seems like they just don't give a shit about what you have to say and they don't believe you, you're just going to be like, all right, we're done here, and just leave. But if they're listening to you intently, and then after listening for a while, say, you know what, there's some problems with a few things you said. That's how you do it. You go in open minded, feel out the spirit, sure, but don't be a naysayer from the beginning, because then, once again, as we mentioned earlier, and a lot of these things are going to repeat, when you block yourself off to that, you're blocking yourself off to what it has to give. And there's a chance it was a legit spirit and not just something of your own mind projecting outwards, and now you've missed it. And you might never be able to build that bridge again that you just burned.
Exactly, and I'll give you an example in my life right now. I got a message from a spirit that something is supposed to happen this month. So, with regards to a certain subject in my life, let's not get generic here. So I looked at that spirit and I opened it with an open heart and said, okay, then show me. I lived in Missouri for 30 years. It's the show me state. Show me, don't tell me. So here we are, the 18th of September. There's 12 days left in the month. I still believe that that spirit is going to deliver on what it told me, but I am prepared for the fact that it might not. And if it does not, then I have to have clear in my mind how I will respond. And usually my response is just, no, we're done.
Yeah, I don't want to keep wasting my energy and time on empty promises. At this point, you tried, or maybe you didn't. But at this point, I think I'm going to move forward.
Exactly. So I do agree with you. You don't go into it with the attitude of it's this way or no way at all. You have to go into it with the attitude of I'm putting it out there. That's the message I'm receiving. I might not resonate with it. I might not like it, but that's the message, and I'm going to stay open-minded to it. That's the way everybody should approach it.
And I have a comment here says, who says all visiting spirits are beneficent? I have major boundaries with that too. And you should. I mean, there are some truly malicious spirits. We've talked about in last couple past episodes, some encounters that I and some members of my cult have come across doing some Qliphothic work that was very alien and very foreign. And I can't quite explain some of the encounters that we had. One was a full-blown possession that I had taken on that I talked about in a past episode that was violent. And I wasn't, I mean, not that I'm foreign to possession, but I wasn't expecting that during a ritual when I just got tanked. And we end up getting the name of what spirit came through and was able to research him further. And I don't want to speak a whole lot on that yet because it's led to some wild, interesting things happening right now with writings and internal work of the coven. But sometimes I wouldn't say he's malicious in the sense that he's just outright to kill us or anything like that. But we have to understand, and I've said time and time again, their demeanor and understanding are different than ours. So sometimes the interaction you have could seem horrific, painful, uncomfortable. Does that mean it's bad? Or does that mean it just comes from a place that it doesn't understand that understanding of us? Like we look at it as so black and white, good and evil. No, it doesn't think that way. It came through, it gave the message it had, it used the body, it was violent. Its messages were not how we would normally want to hear them. But that's its nature. It's the side effects of spirits. Sometimes you have that side effect by coming into contact with it. It isn't pleasant, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's indifferent to what we're used to.
That, and also let's apply some metaphysics because I get her type of question a lot. Well, then what within you is not authentic?
That's a good point too.
You're only going to draw sincere spirits to you if you're a sincere individual. The reason I break this down is, number one, to show that sympathetic magic angle, but number two, to highlight what you're saying. When you choose to step outside of the normal paradigm and contact spirits such as a Qliphothic structure or a goetic structure, you are choosing to put yourself in a position where you might deal with those kind of spirits. The average person is not going to deal with them.
Correct. Nor should they in a lot of cases.
Exactly, nor should they. That's not for everyone. But as soon as you become a magician and you say, I'm stepping out in this direction for this reason, then you don't know what you're going to get. But if you're like, my intention is pure, I am working on attracting this to me, then you know what you're going to get.
Yep. And like we talked about at the very beginning of the episode, is we're explorers. And you know what? I like to explore and see what's out there. And I came into contact with something I wasn't expecting. And even though it was kind of violent in a way, I was able to, over the next week or two, fully heal from my experience and kind of integrate that in and say, you know what? How do I go back and meet him again? You know what I mean? And that's the difference between an explorer from just an average magician. Is I'm looking at it like, okay, yeah, maybe the second time we'll be more familiar with one another and it won't be as bad. And what else does he have to say? And we're going to go there again. And what is his friends like? You know what I mean? I met him. I want to meet his buddies.
It's Hellraiser, demon to some, angel to others.
That's it. Show me the Cenobites. I'm ready.
Right.
Now, last two questions. One is, I just had it. Where did I put it? Okay. You've created tools like the Oraculum Leviathan Tarot. What role does creativity play in occult innovation?
If you aren't creating, then you're either goose stepping with the paradigm or you're dying. The whole point of spirituality, regardless of your tradition, is to create it in your own way. Now, on one hand, that's great because it's subjectively in line with what you believe. On the other hand, that can really be bad if you don't know what you're doing. I really resonate with Aleister Crowley's approach, the method of science, the aim of religion. You create your path and you use that creation process as a way to deepen and develop your spirituality. Magic is an art and a science, which is all about making changes in conformity with your will. So if you're a completely scientific magician, you're missing half the point. If you're a completely creative magician, you're missing half the point. It's really got to be both. But I'm not the guy who's going to tell you to create that specific way, because only you know your creative abilities.
And it'll bring out, it should bring out creative abilities. I'm creative in a lot of ways, but never was big, like artistically. It just was never one of my strong suits. And over the years with magic, then I'm like, well, I'm really just having a hunkering for wanting to make some custom wands. And I really I want to make some different shawls that I wear in ritual. And I want to make some different headgear and headdresses so over time I started to make all these things. And I'm like, wow, I never was a creative person my whole life as far as making objects. But now look at all these malas and now look at all these rosariums and things. I'm like, where did these come from? Because it's an expression of your magic through objects that you use in your faith and in your practice. And it should come out of you. And like you said, there has to be that balance between both. And it's just like people would say about the armchair magician thing. Oh, people, all they do is read books and are intelligent as hell. But, you know, what kind of power do they have? Well, yeah, if all you're ever doing is reading books and not stepping into the circle, it's a problem. If all you're ever doing is ritual and you're not studying or researching anything, it's a problem. But when you are a well-read, well-versed academic mind who steps into the circle often, you are a powerhouse in your practice. It should be a balance of both, just like the aspect of the creativity being brought into your practice along with science, but never leaning too much to any one given thing.
Exactly. And I've even taken it so far as to make my life the crucible. In my astrological chart, I have Chiron in the fifth house. Chiron is the planet of the wound. The fifth house is the house of creativity and creative self-expression and romance. So what that means is I will always have a wound with regard to romance. Yay, fucking me. It also means that I will always have issues when it comes to creativity. Now, when I was younger, the idea was I could never make a living being creative. So then, as I developed spiritually, I decided, you know what? I'm going to live or die by that. I'm either going to make a living being creative or I'm going to die. And I incorporated that into my spiritual paradigm and into my magic.
I think, and that's a huge crossroads for you. When you make that ultimatum, I'm going to make it or I'm going to die trying to, and you take it on, then you are forced to open up doors that you wouldn't have done without that friction, without that pressure.
And it was the result of an acid trip 30 plus years ago on 4 hits where I realized I can go one direction or the other. Which one do I choose? And I made my choice, and I'm still paying the price for this day, and I don't give a shit.
I think you've certainly chose the right direction, brother. I mean,
I guess so, man.
Your body of work speaks for itself, and you know, we get to have great conversations like tonight because of your choice to make it or break it, and I love that.
Yeah, it's all good, man. This has been great fun, but yeah, some people would say the decision I made was masochistic. And I completely agree that it is, and it's not a decision that everyone should make, but it worked for me. You know, at the time I made that decision, I was like in my first or second year of college. So I didn't have any attachments. I was still learning. My mind was open. If I would have been presented with that same epiphany after being married with 1 or 2 kids, I probably would not have decided the same.
And that's a big thing too, is certain decisions can only be made in certain time periods of life. Because as you said, yeah, you fast forward 10 years later, you're like, well, make it or break it right now doesn't sound as appealing because I got 4 other mouths to feed or 3 other mouths to feed. You know, that's a little tricky right now. But if you set that up for yourself and do it prior to those stages, then it changes everything because you're already establishing that. And when you meet your spouse or get into that relationship, have children, it's already known that that is your area of what you're doing. You're already on that road rather than starting it. It's hard to start late in the game. It's easier to start early. So
exactly. And you got to be able to spot, okay, this is who I am. Oh, you're asking me to go against it? Sorry, not going to happen.
Yes.
This, what you see is what you get. And what I see is what I get.
Yeah, because
so it kind of builds your integrity.
Yeah, because if you go into it with a partner and you're like, this is who I am, then it's known. But if you're like, well, I always been this, but I never let it flourish until now, then to them it's kind of foreign, and you're like, this is silly. And you're like, no, this is what I've always wanted, but now I'm just finally working up the balls to do it. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not doing that.
Right.
We got children to feed. We're not going to have you running out and playing magician. It's like, but I'm not playing. I'm ready for this.
Right.
So I think that's important. Now, the last question of the night.
Sure. I just got a little electrical flash here. It's kind of funny.
Okay. You know, that's not the only time that's happened on the show where people's electric. Natasha, who's one of our listeners, who just left a comment a couple minutes ago, she's the high priest of our cult that we run. She has a lot of that. Like, she's been on with our other show, Caniculum Obscuritatis. Her electricity flashes and all kinds of weird shit happens at her house every time we do a show. It's very strange.
Well, then I'll blame you, but, you know, ultimately I'm blaming myself. So, hey, we're resonating.
I love it. Emily says, I'd love to see some of your custom wands, Crow. Yes, I can show you some sometime. I think I had one at a lecture that you attended. It was the Goetic Solomonic wand that I had. It's quite beautiful, but there's some more. I could show you some others sometime. Trevor says, would love your thoughts on Thoth.
Oh, love him dearly. Actually, as a matter of fact, Trevor, that statue right there where you see my finger, that's him. It's approximately 1.5 feet, 2 foot tall statue that someone gifted me many years ago. I don't work with him in a public way as much as I do Horus. But considering that book number 25 is about to come out at the end of the year in 10 years, and essay number 70 something is about to come out in the last 14 years, you could say that I work with him extensively. I love him dearly. I'll also give you the heads up that I will be talking more about him on an international program coming up in the near future. I don't have release dates, but Frater Crow and I will both have it on social media and all that. Long story short, the scribe possibly came from Atlantis, brought writing and education and architecture and engineering to the Egyptians. I could speak just on a whole show about him. Love him dearly.
Yeah, he bleeds over to so many other things, in charge of so many things. His lore and history are very, very profound. And then you start to see commonalities of other things where, you know, and there's several names that could be said to become Metatron, but there's beliefs in some systems that he became Metatron in the Christian faith. And just an amazing character, honestly.
Exactly. Yeah, I love him dearly. I work with him a lot for various reasons, and I don't necessarily do it consciously. A lot of times it's just he flows through me and I let him rip. So what I mean by that is I'm not doing like daily invocations to him. I'm not doing daily devotions or anything like that. It's more a psychological thing where he and I just have a connection, and he says, do this, and I jump, because why the hell not?
But you know what? That's how a lot of the magic does happen. You just let it flow. You don't resist. You just kind of go with the flow and see where it takes you, the wind behind your sails, so to speak.
Exactly.
Last question of the night before there's another comment coming in. We'll read the comment in a minute. Last question. Looking forward, what mysteries, Bill, are you still eager to explore in the next decade of your work?
Sweet 6.5 pound baby Jesus. I don't know if I can answer that. The reason though is because I don't know what I don't know.
True. And as you discover things, you're going to want to write about it. You're going to want to explore deeper. And you don't know yet. You don't know what you don't know, as you said. So that's actually the perfect answer to that question.
Exactly. Yeah, I can tell you next year, I know I'm releasing at least 2 books. One's going to be an introduction to esoteric astrology. One is going to be a book on karma and universal laws, because I'm tired of people not understanding those. There may be a 3rd book next year. After that, I don't have a plan for 2027, but it's probably going to build off those themes. And the reason this matters is because for each book I release, it either answers a question or introduces more mysteries.
And that's what a good book should do. Answer questions and then leave with more than you came with. You're like, you answered all 7 of them, but now I left with 12. I don't.
And you know, for those of you that are writers or artists out there that may get stuck occasionally, remember that perfect is the enemy of good.
It 100% is.
No book is ever perfect. It's just good enough to get released.
100%. Now, Emily, 2 things, and we'll finish out with your comments here. Thank you so much for all of the listeners out there. Emily said, the wand that you had to obtain on a certain day at a time of the year on a particular tree with a single slice of a blade. I remember. Yeah, so that was just following different grimoire and Solomonic principles. That one, I think, was a mixture of following the Lemegeton and the Grand Grimoire. Was the wand. I have a few of them, like I said, so I think that was the one that I showed you. She also said, which was going to be the very last thing I was going to have you do, which is plug yourself here, and that is there an online platform that we can access Bill's teachings and lectures? And I would say, Bill, now would be a good time to tell us anything that you want us to check out and where to check it out at.
So the easiest answer to that is I do have a Linktree account. It's Linktree/418 Ascendant. Beyond that, the easiest would be YouTube. Check out my YouTube channel. You can also go to BillDuvendack.com. The YouTube channel has all kinds of free videos on it. Every month I do a monthly astrological preview video breaking down the upcoming month by day astrologically. And no, I don't say, if you're a sign, this is what it means to you. I don't do that pop culture shit. I say more in line with ancient Egypt. On this day, these are the energies in the sky, so work with them as you see fit. I also have a segment on there called the Bishop's Library, where I review various texts. Right now, I started about the year 1000, and I'm working my way up to current. So there's reviews on there of Agrippa's material. There's reviews on there of the True Grimoire. There's reviews on there on the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Greater Key of Solomon, a lot of classical magical texts, and they're just meant as introductions. But then there's also the videos where, as you can imagine, I just rant. So
good.
There's a lot of variety. I know, me rant?
I love ranting.
I'm being as contained as I am tonight.
Listen, I think some of my best information I've ever given has been during rants, where like I start on a subject and then I go 7 degrees to the left, where by the time I'm done, they're like, you just answered none of what I really asked, but you taught me a whole lot of other stuff. And I'm like, hey, listen, that's how my mind works. ADD, you know. So.
I used to do that a lot until I realized that all it was doing was coming off as me attempting to piss people off.
Okay.
Even though that was not my intention.
I could see that, because people have told me before on my end, they're like, for some reason, and I don't understand why, because those who are close to me know I'm actually very humble. I try to always remain humble in everything I do. But I've had people come on and they're like, man, you're really cocky, or you're really arrogant. And I'm like, I don't understand why. And it's because of what you just said. Whenever I'm telling a subject, and I break off into 6 other things that I'm teaching you, I'm doing it because I have a love for teaching and a love for connecting dots and showing you all this different information. A lot of times, for some reason, that rubs people wrong, and they're like, he's coming across arrogant, like he knows so much. And I'm like, no, that's not at all what I was trying to do. I was just trying to share this great information with you. So yeah, I could see how sometimes our passion, you know, takes tangents and it turns people off for some reason. I don't know why.
Exactly. And you can tell by my F-bombs and colorful language that my material is not meant for people under 18. It's not mainstream. It's very George Carlin-esque or Bill Hicks-esque.
And that's why I made this show, is for that exact reason, is because you have a lot of great, like Haitian Press and these other places that are doing great interviews. That's wonderful. And they're very professional, very well spoken. I want to give that same amount of information and understandings while being completely unfiltered and unrelenting. And I'm one of the only people that do that, because most of the other shows try to pride themselves like, we need to be professional. I find that this speaks to the people who are more like us. So it's like, you know what? You don't have to be, you're still professional without needing to be so tight, if that makes sense.
Exactly. My favorite comedian's Bill Hicks.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if people say he's unprofessional, then you really got issues with me. You know, George Carlin talked about the 7 words you can't say on television.
Yeah, I remember.
And he did that bit in the 70s, and that's still true to a certain extent to today. But nowadays, no one really cares about television. It's all about streaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I prefer to think of people like you and myself as being in line with that stand-up comedian kind of vibe.
100%. That's exactly what I always wanted to go for. Is like, you're getting that raw, unrelenting. We're going to say some things that most people are like, we can't say that. Well, I just said it. So
I just did. Like the dude about the lawyer earlier. Sure.
Yeah, because most people would be like, oh, yeah, we're not sure what you're talking about, sir, and keep moving on. I'm like, no, fuck this guy. Like, I don't, get off my show. Like, I don't care if that offends anybody. Good for you.
Exactly. And I'm reminded of The Rock from the WWE in the late 90s. Just bring it.
Just bring it.
Go ahead.
He's still listening.
Nothing new.
I have
become the old magician sitting on my front porch in my rocker with a cane and a dog saying, get off my lawn.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, folks, we're going to wrap up. You've been sticking with us for a long time tonight. I think this is actually one of the longest episodes we've ever done, which I love it. We normally do an
Well,
hour.
shit, I'm flattered.
Yeah,
Awesome, dude.
we usually do like an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. We're at 2 hours and 18 minutes, so we're running nice tonight. But we will finish it out, and obviously we ask that you click the like, share, follow, subscribe buttons, move that around. I'll be dropping a bunch of shorts. You guys can throw that all over the place. Check out Bill's website. Check out his information. Please pick up his books and read it. You're going to find a lot of knowledge there. Bill, before I do the outro here, I do want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight and talking to my listeners, and for obviously being able to shoot the breeze with you.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for the opportunity. This has been a riot. And anybody that wants to reach me, even if you don't remember everything I said about Linktree and blah, 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 you can go to Google and type in Bill Astrology St. Louis and it'll pull me up. Love to hear from you.
And if you can't find him even through those different methods, reach out to me. I'll point you right to him. So we'll make sure you get there. So finishing out this evening, you've just journeyed through the mysteries with Bill Duvendack, astrologer, author, ceremonial magician, and teacher of the Western esoteric tradition. From the stars above to the shadows within, Bill has shared insight that remind us why the pursuit of truth is never ending. Be sure to explore his writings, teachings, and upcoming projects. With over 20 published works and decades of experience, there is always more to discover. Until next time, stay curious, stay disciplined, and never stop seeking the light that waits beyond the veil. This is Freighter Crow from Knights of the Nephilim, and we'll see you in the shadows next time. Take care and have a wonderful night.